Amnesia. Whenever I think of Amnesia, the first thing that comes to mind is that traumatizing face of the servant Grunt. This thing is nightmare fuel. Careful not to look at it for too long because it will reduce his sanity. I don't know too much about Amnesia, but I think this killer alone will add more scare factor, and his power can add a unique mechanic to the game. If you're not familiar with it, in Amnesia, when you play as Daniel, the main protagonist, you have this insanity meter that you have to maintain while navigating through the game. When you look at the Grunt for a short period of time, your sanity will start to go down at a rapid rate. I think it will be very interesting for this mechanic to play a part in DBD because then it will feel like a reverse Ghostface in a way. If this was the case, I can see the Grunt being pretty strong to mind game. Gravity Fleek sees an Amnesia concept coming, so I can't wait for that. If you're into Amnesia coming to DBD, definitely check out their concept for Amnesia coming soon. I'm sure it will be another masterpiece. Terrifier.
Are you okay?
Art is like the manifestation of a deranged lunatic who has a master's degree in torture and will not hold back even if it means slicing your eye in half. The mind of this dark entity that is Art the Clown should definitely without a doubt be in the game, like DBD. I feel like Art would love the feeling of being in a place where he can keep torturing and killing people with zero remorse. Similar to Ghostface, it's a plethora of things I feel they can do with this character, even if it means making up a power, just like how they did for Pyramid Head. If he ever does get added to the game, the devs cannot disappoint with his mori. Like, just make it insane as possible. I don't care if it's 30 seconds or whatever. I hope I don't sound crazy. Overall, he will be a fun addition to the game with his hilarious but ruthless personality, putting the laughter in slaughter. Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
I'm Buffy, and you're history.
Buffy would probably be my first P100 survivor if she ever entered the fog. It's been a minute since I've watched the show, but I don't think the devs should have a shame in putting Buffy and even most of the cast like Willow, Spike, and Xander, etc. in DBD. I can see us finally getting a high school map. That would be the Sunnydale High School with this chapter as well as a vampire killer. It would be pretty cool if there were AI vampires that can patrol the map, kind of like a mix of Knight and Nemesis, but if survivors have a stake, they can stake the vampires like in the show, making for a pretty satisfying kill on the survivor's part.
Bring on the bloodshed.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah.
Malignant. Malignant is easily one of the most unique slasher horror movies that I've watched and make for an even more interesting chapter in DBD, especially with Gabriel running around the map. The reason why this chapter would interest me so much is because the killer would technically be the survivor and the survivor would be the killer. If you're not familiar with it, Gabriel is the parasite of the main protagonist, Madison Mitchell. Why I say Mitchell like that? Mitchell, and is directly in the back of her head. That's why he runs with his limbs being in opposite motion, because Gabriel lives in the same body, the same mind as Madison. When Michaela was getting teased, I thought we would have seen Lisa Sherwood, aka the Hag, as a possible survivor, considering, you know, her hexes and such. That way she would have only introduced not only hexes but the boons as well. Anyway, the only thing about Malignant is that I just have no idea what Gabriel's power would be at all. Maybe he can just be a mobile killer that rushes you similar to Blight and Wesker. I'm guessing that or something to do with mind and hindering survivors with their own mind. I mean, it sounds crazy, but it could work. Left 4 Dead, The Witch. We have Bill, so why not? I never understood why we never got the witch as a killer with possibly the sacrifice as a map. It just always confused me. I think the witch would have been a very eerie killer to have in DVD, as you can hear the cries of the witch as she slowly approaches you. I would see her being, of course, a very agile killer who can possibly injure and down multiple survivors in the same area. People have mentioned the idea of her being in DBD and why she's not in DBD in the first place. I guess the chapter, or at least the rest of what's left of the chapter, is something not only myself but Left 4 Dead fans are still humble for, because we can have nothing at all. So it would have been pretty cool seeing a full Left 4 Dead chapter in DVD. Outlast. You can run, but you can't hide. Outlast is for sure one of those games that will keep you on edge for its intense chases and gore-infested environment. However, that's not the only thing Outlast has been praised for. The fact that you're completely defenseless in Outlast and the only way to stay alive is by running away and hiding makes it perfect addition for DVD. Outlast is one of those games that I'm surprised wasn't added to DVD a lot sooner, bringing Miles Upshur and Mount Massive Asylum along with his insane patience into the fog. It would be pretty cool seeing potentially Chris Walker, the Surgeon, Martha, or hell even the Wall Rider being one of the killers. Though I feel it will most likely be Chris Walker if they ever considered adding it, but anything is possible I guess. Plus the last game license we got was Resident Evil. I think a game license like Outlast will sell pretty well because we have Outlast Trials coming out soon, so I don't think it would be such a bad idea for an Outlast DLC and DVD to invite part of the Outlast community to DVD if they don't play DVD already. Outlast fits like a glove and I'm pretty sure many wouldn't mind seeing it at all. Call of Duty Zombies.
This cannot be. Hold it right down. You belong to me.
This one would be interesting to see in a game like DBD since it will go from first-person shooter to asymmetrical horror. Call of Duty is one of the most popular FPS franchises to ever exist, so for it to be in a game like DBD, a slasher horror game, is definitely a head-scratcher, but I do see potential in it. Thanks to Call of Duty having a zombies mode, it would be pretty cool seeing such a chapter exist. It will show the Call of Duty community that Call of Duty is not just for shooting, but slashing or having your heart pounding. If it's anyone I can see being a killer from Call of Duty Zombies, it will most likely be the Warden, a brute Nazi zombie that you had to take down within the franchise. He seems like the most popular choice if this chapter was to ever happen. There's a spotlight concept on YouTube that does a pretty decent job showing how his power can work. That involves slowing down survivors, revealing their location, and blocking objects with a power called lockdown. You can check out the concept in the description. Another popular choice I've heard for a survivor is Edward Richthofen, who is one of the playable characters in Call of Duty Zombies. To be honest, I don't know too much about Call of Duty's lore, but I would love to have the chapter in the game because it's just my childhood. I can only imagine seeing Kindle de Totten or Voyage of Despair as possible maps in DVD. May I add that it would be pretty damn cool if the Warden came with goblins or zombies that could just roam around the map and hinder or reveal survivors for him. That would be like the cherry on top of that chapter in all honesty. Call of Duty is the least likely chapters that we will probably see, but I definitely think it's worth considering as it will bring Call of Duty lovers to DVD. Why not? Give it a shot.
It is obeyed.
The Shining. I know Pennywise is a popular choice as a license from Stephen King, but that's not the only license that I think should be obtained. The Shining, in my opinion, would be a decent chapter to see in DVD. The main reason why I really wouldn't mind a Shining chapter is because the Overlook Hotel would be a unique map to have in the game. I mean, balance-wise, I can see the map being an absolute nightmare, but as the first ever hotel to ever appear in DVD as a map, I think the Overlook Hotel would be pretty cool. Being chased in the maze would be pretty intense, and I could see fun moments happening in it as well. It will also be a W from the devs if you were to see the twin sisters as an Easter egg if you ever were to look down the hallway for a glimpse second. I think that would be kind of neat. I could see Jack Torrance's power being something like chopping through pallets and breakable walls very quickly. It will also be an interesting feature in his power if he can break pallets without them having to be dropped. Of course, this wouldn't happen too frequently, just to be fair, but maybe an action you could do every minute or something like that. That idea, or even something like a belt in Spirit Fury, so if a pallet is ever slammed on him, he will then destroy the pallet within the stun duration. I feel like many people overlook The Shining as a chapter in DVD, but I feel it has potential to be a great addition.
Here's Johnny.
Ratman. Hail Ratma. Disgusting, dirty, creepy. This slimy abomination will set a very dark tone for DVD. My love for Ratman started all the way back when in GTA 4 there were theories going around that Ratman was lurking in the sewers. However, this was only a mystery with one source of evidence. A picture of Ratman in GTA 4 was posted on the internet, but many believe that was fake because you never run into him in the game. Ratman then appeared in a movie called VHS 94 where cult-like followers praised Ratman for his existence. There are a handful of VHS movies, but VHS 94 was pretty interesting interesting in my opinion. If you guys haven't watched it, I recommend y'all check it out. Anyway, I couldn't help but think that Ratman will be an unnerving addition to DBD, especially with a map like the sewers. It'll be pretty unique if Ratman can puke on the floor and create a puddle, up to 5 puddles. Ratman can activate 2 puddles. If a survivor is on an activated puddle, a prompt button will pop up, and if you press the button, the survivor will spawn at your second activated puddle with speed delay. The puddles will be mainly for chase, but if not, Ratman can crawl through the puddles and receive a temporary speed boost. A secondary ability to crawl and pounce off of surfaces would be pretty diverse as well. I just want to crawl and kill her so bad at this point, really. Fairly, I don't think this will ever happen in DVD, mainly because it's just not too popular at all. Something close to it might happen though, but I can see something like this being frightening yet fun to have in the game.
And in sports news, Ohio State plays the Indiana Hoosiers tomorrow night. Good luck to our Buckeyes. I'm Holly Marciano, Channel 6 News. Hail Ratman.
The Collector.
Trying to tell you.
This will be our chapter 2.0. The Collector is intelligent, talented, and brutal. He will use those traits against you to see you perish. If you're not familiar with him, the Collector is a serial killer who uses his fancy but crazy mechanisms to kill his victims. He of course collects the special ones and puts them in the box before doing whatever he feels will torture them. You can say he's like Jigsaw, but he's not playing no games, and instead he would just try to kill you or collect you. In DVD, I can see him having a variety of traps that he could set across the map. That includes traps to put on chests, items, doorways, vault locations, hooks, generators, lockers, and pallets to injure survivors that come in contact with them. The idea is that Collector has a trap for everything the survivor can interact with, making it more hazardous of not only watching where you're going, but what you're doing. It will also be an interesting mechanic if keys and boxes are spawned around the map. Putting survivors in the box will work like a hook with a twist. If a survivor didn't obtain a key yet to free themselves from the box, they must depend on the teammate with a key to free them. I can see trapper mates falling in love with the killer like the Collector, since they would share similar playstyles if the devs did consider adding him. Still think he will be an insane addition to the game though. A Quiet Place. I feel like this chapter will be extremely unique yet difficult to implement into the game in the best way possible. A Quiet Place follows a family with horrific past trauma, but has to survive the rest of humanity against blind creatures with great hearing and pure silence. If you make a sound, well, this will happen. There's one major character in the movie by the name of Reagan, who was the daughter in a bot family, and she happens to be deaf. I think having her in the game like DBD would be very diverse, since she would be our very first deaf character. She could have a unique but challenging factor about playing her that every sound around her is muffled, even the radius. This could make for some interesting perks on her behalf. However, the only issue with having her in the game is that she's pretty young. I mean, if the license holders let behavior modify her a bit by making her an adult, kinda like how they did for a Sadako chapter, I think that would be pretty great. If not though, the mother, who is Evelyn the bot, will likely be the survivor along with her husband, Leah bot. Of course, the killer would be the Death Angel. That sounds like a cool name in DVD, I'm not gonna lie. These monsters here extremely well, with their only impairment being that they can't see. Seeing a monster like this will be pretty immersive experience in DVD, considering, well, the monsters can't see. The devs could tweak this into the game by having the outline structures of the map be visible for the monster, but the monster can't see the survivors. So playing as the Death Angel would feel like a forever spirit in a way. But mind you, this is all passive. The power would have to involve something with mobility. Something like if the Death Angel gets a sound notification, they sprint at a much faster speed and can see aura from certain meters away. What I like about the idea of this chapter is that it has the potential to do something very different that we've never seen before in DVD by having a deaf protagonist versus a blind antagonist. If behavior were considering adding A Quiet Place or something like that as a chapter, there's no doubt that it would bring more of a distinct feel to DVD. Hannibal Lecter.
Oh, and Senator, just one more thing. Love your suit.
Out of the many classic characters we have in DBD, one of the many few that we're missing is the Hannibal Lecter. This is a true psychopath, and I think the entity will be pleased and curious to see what Hannibal Lecter is capable of in the fog. This psycho made someone kill themselves just by speaking to them. How? What I noticed in the film is that Hannibal Lecter likes to get in his victims' heads, and he's like a chameleon, being able to blend in with whatever circumstance. How would the devs be able to incorporate this into a game like DBD? I really have no idea. I thought it was something where he could kinda inflict whatever status effect he wants on the survivor without the need of any perks. This would make sense since Hannibal Lecter has the capability of not only controlling your emotions but your actions, making you feel uncomfortable. He's so calm and intelligent, it's intimidating, that kind of feel. Hence him having the audacity to get into your head and make you feel or do stuff you don't want to do. But that's the thing, how would he inflict it? Would it be like a stock like Ghostface, something like a gaze? Like I don't know how that would work. I also can't think of some sort of blend ability for him without it being too mystical as well, since Hannibal Lecter is more on the realistic side. Still someone I would love to see in the game, but the devs will have to get really creative if they plan on considering him. I've seen his iconic mask in games like wrestling and stuff, but it will be pretty unique seeing himself in the game, chasing, hooking people. Insidious.
It was a visitor. I said, "What do you want?" It said Dalton.
An Insidious chapter in DBD I think might be interesting, but the process of how it could connect to DBD I think will be more intriguing. A family in a haunted house experiences demonic events that eventually put the older son by the name of Dalton Lambert into a coma. The parents, who are Josh and Renee Lambert, contact the medium by the name of Elise Rainier, who senses dark energy not only around the house but close to the Lambert son, Dalton. Elise then finds out that Dalton has a special gift to leave the human body and roam alternate realms. In other words, astral projection. Dalton then gets lost and taken by a demon which is in an unknown realm called the Further. Josh Lambert, the father, must now save his son in hopes of bringing him back in one piece. If y'all seen the movie, y'all know it does not end well. Similar idea with Sadako's chapter by having the youngest character be older. I think it will be neat for Dalton's special gift to meet the entity. Dalton can astral project, right? So wouldn't it be interesting for Dalton to discover or be lured into the realm of the entity, bringing a familiar demon along with him. This would be a pretty damn dark chapter, especially if it's just Dalton and not the parents, because they will be wondering where he's wandered off into once again. I could see the demon having a unique ability that could kind of work like pig straps in a way, where once the demon downs a survivor, the demon can send the survivor to the Further. This will be the slowdown of the ability, because survivors will have to escape the Further in order to be active in the game again. I had that in mind, but then it's like the Further can just be the map and the demon could just do something different. I'll still love to see the chapter exist in DBD, and I think it could shake up the game a bit.
Slow down. His feet are black. Slow down. Okay, slow down.
What is it?
Mirror's Edge.
Wires are going crazy. Get out of there, Nate. I'm passing Celeste. You there, Tom?
What the hell's happening? I can hear gunshots and that bird seems a little too curious.
Mirror's Edge is for sure one of those games I was playing back in the PS3 days. It was hands down one of the most immersive games I played at a pretty young age. Faith is brave, bold, and a daredevil. I think she could use her incredible agility in the realm of the entity to outrun killers for days. If Faith was in DBD, I could see her having a perk that involves tokens, which for each token that increases her vault speed, if she winds up getting hit, she loses a token. However, if she reaches 5 tokens, the perk can grant her 6% haste for 25 seconds or something crazy like that. She will for sure have to have at least one exhausted perk because she be out in the game. The model for her would be cool to see in DBD as well, considering Mirror's Edge is a first person game. I guess you could call her the Meg 2.0 because they're both runners, but I still think it will be pretty interesting to see. Mirror's Edge is not the only license I would want in DBD from EA though, but the other license is pretty popular, so that don't count. Mary Shaw.
Beware the stare of Mary Shaw. She had no children, only dolls. And if you see her in your dreams, be sure you never, ever scream.
Ugh, this lady creeped me out when I was younger. I feel like not only should the devs take ton of inspiration from her story if they ever consider adding a doll type killer, but just add her in general. Mary Shaw fits perfectly in the game like Dead by Daylight, and she can be the first killer to actually bring dolls to interact with. That's if they decide not to bring Chucky into the game though. If you're not familiar with her, Mary Shaw was a lady who became overly obsessive with dolls to the point where she considered the dolls her own children and started creating ones of her own. As she grew up, this led to most people in the town bullying Mary because of her obsession. Mary kinda lost her mind because of this and kept note of everyone who wronged her because of her obsession. Mary's goal was to create a life-size doll which she would modify with human parts. One day this came true. Mary was a ventriloquist who would perform at shows and special events. A boy who was attending the show exposed Mary for saying that her lips were moving, believing that the doll wasn't really talking. Mary wasn't happy with this and later kidnapped the boy and turned him into a ventriloquist dummy. Townsfolk in searching for the boy later got suspicious of Mary, raided her home and cut off her tongue before killing her. Mary's tongue being a mandatory part of her body because she would need that in order to perform as a ventriloquist. One of the many requests from Mary, which she kept in the book if she ever were to die, was to be turned into a life-size doll. After her burial, she then took revenge into her own hands and killed all the townspeople that wronged her by ripping out their tongue if they screamed. This legitimately sounds like something that could be in DBD spot on. Just that really disturbing, edgy, and dark tone her story has to offer. The realm of the entity will be a perfect setting for her. I can see the entity manipulating her mind, making her see the survivors as the town people that wronged her. If they don't one day add her, I hope they at least take huge inspiration from her story. It's very underrated. I picture Mary Shaw having the ability to manifest herself into dolls and make survivors scream or manipulate them in some way. Of course, screaming plays a huge part in her power. I can see her having a similar mechanic to Pinhead when he teleports near a survivor that's sold in the box. Instead, with Mary Shaw, it will be when the survivors scream. This will have a cooldown to it because she will be the ultimate slugger with infectious fright when you really think about it, but I see her having that snowball effect as her playstyle anyways. Maybe a passive mechanic where if you're in a tear radius for too long and your meter starts to fill up, like your scream meter or something like that, the survivors around her would just scream. Something similar like the Doctor. Survivors could counter this with calm spirit or by hopping in the locker. I doubt this chapter will happen because she's not really popular like that anymore, but if it did, I can see her being called the ventriloquist and her having the power that has to do with dolls and screaming.
Now, who's the dummy?
Manhunt.
Where were your family when you were facing your final moments in the chamber anyway? You've left your old life, your old self. I'm all the family you need now.
One of the most controversial games ever made, which is why I will probably never make it to DVD, but of course I still want to see. This game was my first love when it came to not only horror games in general, but stealth games as well. I was so fascinated by how much harm you can inflict on another human, which felt kinda real. I guess that's what makes Manhunt so disturbing after all, though it can be deeper than that. In Manhunt, you play as James Earl Cash, a death row inmate who was given a second chance of life by Lionel Starkweather, a greedy snuff film director. This second chance of life is guaranteed to be Cash's most brutal experience as he kills his way through gangs to find out who's really behind this snuff film ring that he so happens to be the main star in.
They're going to be screaming your name, boy. Mark my words.
This game will forever be iconic, and I think it will fit in with DVD pretty well. Considering Manhunt is a stealth survival horror game, I can see Cash having perks that rely on stealth and maybe even an ambush stun. In Manhunt, you pick up bricks and throw them at hunters to stun them, then execute them in the process. In DBD's case, since you can't execute killers, this can just result in Cash being able to throw a brick at the killer which stuns them, and then that gives him a chance to run. I guess it could work just like Diversion in a way. I can see the killer being Pigsy, who is Starkweather's former snuff film star that he keeps locked in his mansion. Pigsy is pretty terrifying in Manhunt, so I can see him being even scarier in DVD. The only issue is that Pigsy has a chainsaw, and I don't really know any other way a chainsaw killer can work in DVD. We already have two, so to have 3 killers whose main power is the chainsaw might be a bit redundant, unless for some reason Pigsy's chainsaw doesn't insta down and his power can have something to do with mobility and stealth, which will be more faithful to Manhunt. I can see the map finally taking us to a mansion, not this mansion, but Starkweather's mansion, which Pigsy was locked up in. The map in the game has a pretty disturbing ambience as Cash is finally on the brink of taking down who's behind the snuff film ring for good, so we think. Starkweather's mansion in DBD would be a neat addition to the chapter I feel may never happen, but cheers to hoping, I guess. It would be cool if Behavior and Rockstar decided to give us a Manhunt chapter, because I'm certain it will be a chapter that's both faithful and amazing. Splatterhouse.
Quit whining. Did I say it was gonna be fun? You're gonna have to learn to love the pain. There's a lot more of it to come.
Speaking of brutality, this game does a ruthless job showing you just how bloody it could get. As you punch, bash, slice and dice your way to save your girlfriend Jenny, watching blood fill your screen till it looks like it's about to burst out of your TV, Splatterhouse is a bloody, disgusting fun time. It follows Rick Taylor and his girlfriend Jenny, who go to this mansion where Jenny wants to interview the psychotic doctor, that being Dr. Henry West, who is the owner of the mansion, who's also obsessed with Jenny and decides to kill Rick and kidnap his girlfriend. As Rick is quote-unquote dying, an exotic ancient looking mask starts persuading Rick to put the mask on and getting inside his head to get revenge on the doctor and save his girlfriend. I don't think I need to explain why this game fits in DVD, but I do find Rick Taylor very interesting. I say this because he can be a survivor, but he can also be a killer. In the game, he brutalizes hordes of creatures and monsters to get to his girlfriend, but the reason why Rick is so remorselessly brutal is not only because of his urge to save his girlfriend, but because the mask he has on is his inner demon. It takes control of Rick's body and actions, killing creatures in the most brutal way possible. Most of the kills he does with his bare hands, even the most uncomfortable ones. I think it would be interesting if the entity decided to take his girlfriend Jenny, and the only way for him to get his girlfriend back is by sacrificing survivors for the entity. I see his power being somewhat similar to Oni's, where the more Rick injures survivors, the more his power gauge will fill. Once the power gauge fills up, Rick can transform into his Terror form. In the Terror form, I could see something insane happening where Rick can break Volt interactions and pallets within range with a heavy power attack, a dash attack, and increased speed for transversal around the map. I can see the map being the mansion of Dr. Henry West that Rick died in, quote unquote. In the game, it does take you to many other creative locations where it's likely to be filled with blood and guts, but I still enjoyed playing it for the design part and not just for the gore. If the devs were considering this license, which is very unlikely, it will most likely just be a paragraph with Rick Taylor as the killer. I say this because the core enemies you run into in this game are way too huge. Plus, I just like the idea of Rick killing anyone in his way to have his girlfriend in his arms once more. This game is a hidden gem. If you like beat 'em ups with a lot of blood and an overall fun time, please play this game. It's really addicting and will be a random yet interesting addition to DVD.
Save her. If you show me some faith, if you trust me, if you put me on.
Gears of War.
Get out of here. We gotta get fucking out of here, man.
Oh my god.
I feel like this would be one of the most obscure chapters to ever happen in DVD if the devs ever considered it. Gears of War just has that gritty atmosphere that doesn't hesitate to put you in uncomfortable situations that will leave you on the edge of your seat.
Nice.
I don't know the lore too well, but what interests me in having this chapter in DVD is the aesthetic of the game and the power of General Rom, who is the High General of the Locust Army. The Locust Army, whom appear to be genetically altered humans. In the game, General Rom can control krill, which are like these ravenous bat-like creatures that will eat you alive within seconds. However, they are extremely sensitive to light, so the player, who is Marcus Phoenix, the main protagonist and legendary war hero, must stay in the light in order to survive against the hordes of krill in the sky. I really like the aesthetic of the krill and their counter, and I think it can play a unique part in DVD. Imagine having the map pitch black similar to Nightfall and the sky is just filled with krill. It can be this mechanic where there are 3 lanterns that spawn run around the map that the 4 survivors can use to stay in the light. So that means every time this phase happens in game with General Rom, at least one survivor has to sacrifice surviving in the dark. When a survivor is in the dark for too long, the crew will slowly eat at them, costing them a health state, and reveal their location to General Rom. Marcus Phoenix can bring a unique perk to the game where it allows him to spawn Jack into the trial. Jack is a friendly service bot in the Gears of War series. A viewer whose power concept was shown on the screen for General Rom came up with a really cool perk for Jack that I'll read to you here. Jack ripped the door. Jack is more than just a battle-hardened service bot. He is a family member, a friend. This perk summons Jack to the trial. Jack can open chests, pick up items, and bring them to you. Stop regressing generators, break breakable walls, pick up dropped pallets, and fixes broken pallets. Note, he can only fix one broken pallet. I find this perk really interesting, and I think it has potential to give DBD a breath of fresh air by how diverse this is. Sometimes I think Behavior should really put concepts in the game that the community came up with. It's creative imaginations like these that I would like to see become a reality. Gears of War will be a great and fairly random chapter in DBD, but I think the game's aura can be presented pretty well within the realm of the entity. Last year. Last year, they resurrected asymmetrical horror game where high school students need to work together to escape from twisted themes that will
tear your soul apart.
I explained how much I loved this game before because of its brutal executions and engaging gameplay, but how cool would it be if we were able to see a crossover with DVD? The problem about this is last year doesn't really have a main killer, so which killer would make an appearance in DVD? Why not the first 3? That being the Strangler, the Slasher, and the Giant. The way I can see this working is that they will all need each other in some way. Similar to last year, the killers will have slow movement speed, so in DVD's case, Strangler would probably be around 3.8 ms, Giant would be 4.2 ms, and Slasher would be 4.4 ms. But they can all teleport freely like in last year, with minor cooldown. Strangler would be used to chain survivors and bring them close to him, similar to Deathslinger, but he needs to attack the survivor twice. Giant, if close enough, can pick up survivors and throw them. If the survivor hits collision, similar to Wesker, that's an insta down, but if they just hit the ground, that's a health state. Slasher can dash similar to Demogorgon's Shred, except it would inflict a deep wound status effect. I think it would be unique to have a 3-in-1 kind of killer where they're slow on their own but can mix their powers to create devastating combos. Like Strangler reeling in the survivor to swap into Giant and then throw them against the wall, resulting in an insta down. I think that would be pretty cool. I guess some survivor skins inspired from the survivors in last year can work because the survivors in last year pretty much have the same role and no lore. The map I could see finally being a high school map where of course the main setting is placed concerning its high school students. I guess the devs could add in a little Easter egg for a spider, like the baby spiders around the outside of the map similar to zombies and RPD, only because I don't see Spider being a part of the 3. I see Spider being a killer on its own with the potential to web up, throw up, and cling itself to survivors. But I favor the concept of bringing the first 3 original fiends all together in one. I always had this collaboration in mind considering last year and DVD are my top ASIM horror games at the moment. That's at least until this release. If you haven't played last year, you should definitely check it out. It's free on Steam if you don't have it already, and it's a pretty fun experience. I'm glad the game has returned, and I don't think it would be such a bad idea to consider this game as a licensed chapter in DVD, where you can also play as the first 3 original killers, or fiends I should say, within the realm of the entity. John Wick. John Wick is a man of focus, commitment, and pure will, thus his infamous nickname being the Baba Yaga. I'm pretty sure many of you know John Wick, but in case you don't, John Wick is a legendary hitman who you do not, I repeat, do not wanna fuck with. This man kills someone with a pencil, for crying out loud. A pencil. Anyway, John Wick is a force not to be reckoned with, and I couldn't help but think that he would be a fun addition in DVD. Yeah, John Wick would be running away and that's not really his thing, but I'll be curious to see what he can bring into the realm of the entity. In the movies, he's known to be quite immune to pain, considering he can literally fall off a whole building, get hit by a car or two, and still pounce back up swinging. In DBD's case, I can definitely see him playing like a tank role. I can see him having a perk that allows him to take more damage than he's supposed to for a certain amount of time. So something crazy can work where if John Wick stuns a killer like 5 times by any means, he can gain an extra health state. I would add something else to this kit, like him being able to bring a new item like a stun grenade, where it works like a flashbang, but instead of blinding the killers, it slows the killers down for a certain amount of time. DBD doesn't have a hitman in the game yet as a survivor, though for the killers it's most fitting, so I think John Wick would be a badass go-to for a survivor of that nature if the devs were ever considering. The franchise is a jaw-dropping, non-stop action experience, and I think John Wick would be an intriguing entry in DBD. Poppy Playtime. If FNAF never comes to DVD, I would at least want a chapter or license that's pretty similar to it, that being Poppy Playtime. Poppy Playtime follows an unnamed protagonist who goes to this shady abandoned toy factory, which he used to be an employee at, after receiving a note and VHS tape telling him to do so. The protagonist then finds out that the founder of the abandoned toy factory, Elliot Ludwig, had an ambition to make lifelike dolls by experimenting on employees who mysteriously vanished, where those employees are now immortal, but their souls are trapped inside the body of the dolls in the factory. This game was pretty creepy in my opinion, mainly Huggy Wuggy chasing you in the vent like an absolute mad lad. But I would heavily prefer this game as a chapter in DBD, if FNAF wasn't possible for whatever reason. It captures that FNAF-like essence pretty well while still doing its own thing at the same time, most likely because the setting is a creepy toy factory where dolls and toys alike are actually alive inside. That will of course be the map. I know this game had a spin-off called Project Playtime, where instead of it being single player, it's multiplayer, where you could play as either one of the toys, which are considered monsters, or a survivor. Pretty fun game. I really like the mini games they use when playing as survivor. In that game though, you can play as Huggy Wuggy, who I can see as the killer if Behavior ever considered adding this license to the game. This character alone is pretty damn creepy, especially with those razor sharp teeth and googly eyes viciously chasing you down. But what I like about the idea of this character coming to DBD is what he could do. In Project Playtime, Huggy Wuggy can set down these miniature toys of itself that rat out the survivor's locations when they come near it or do their objective, and can spit at rapid speed for a short duration. Now, though they can just copy and paste those abilities from Project Playtime into DVD, I think they could give Huggy Wuggy something that can stand out more. If Huggy Wuggy was in DVD, they can give him the miniature toys as a detection ability, but he can also use his long arms to launch himself closer to survivors, almost like a grappling gun. He can attach his arm to collision and surfaces to pull himself closer to where he's going, but not the survivors themselves. I can only imagine being at Dead Dog Saloon where you're at the generator in the main building upstairs, only to see Huggy Wuggy approaching and spring out his arms to lunge itself upstairs towards you. I think it would be really cool to see. I'm not sure if many people will want to see a crossover between Poppy Playtime and Dead by Daylight. Not that I'm taking it seriously, but I am curious to see how a game like Poppy Playtime would be executed as a chapter in DVD, especially while having the toy factory as a map for the first time, unless they're saving it for someone else. And a creative long-range killer who plays like a self-grappling gun, it could give DVD that quote-unquote children horror media aspect and replacement if FNAF wasn't unfortunately possible to happen. Hotline Miami. In Hotline Miami, a high-octane action game, you play as Jacket, who seems like he's lost all care in anything after his separation from his girlfriend and receives cryptic messages on his phone by 50 Blessings, an ultra-nationalist terrorist group bent on ridding the United States of Russia. These messages telling him to go to certain locations, which are Russian mob hangouts, where Jacket carelessly murders them in the most gruesome ways possible, inevitably putting an end to the Russian mafia. Now, I know this is not a horror game whatsoever, but the character Jacket alone is horror enough for Dead by Daylight. Picture someone who loses all emotion to empathize with people. no matter how good or bad those people are and what they're capable of doing to those people. That's where Jacket steps in. I'm guessing how this all can fit is that somewhere in the middle of the Hotline Miami storyline, instead of Jacket getting another call from 50 Blessings, he gets a call from the entity posing as the 50 Blessings. Jacket drives further and further to this location till it suddenly becomes eerily foggy. Jacket comes to a stop and sees a group of Russian mobsters around a campfire. In Hotline Miami, Jacket gets these hallucinations, which is his subconscious trying to justify why he's doing what he's doing. I think it would be a neat touch if Jacket doesn't actually see survivors, but he sees the ones he's been inflicting so much harm on, which is the deceased bodies of the people he murdered, making it so Jacket wants to continuously banish them from his memory, but the entity keeps bringing them back to mess with him. Because although Jacket really has no empathy, I don't think he would kill someone who's just trying to survive. It's a difference from killing someone that deserves it. In the game, Jacket could wear different animal masks, which grants him different abilities that can help you complete the mission. This could be implemented into his power, where his interactions could be quicker, weapons apply different debuffs on the survivor, and he could become more resistant to pallets or any stuns depending on which mask he has on. After playing Hotline Miami, I see why people may want Jacket in DVD. The game itself is a violent, gore-infested murder simulator that has a valid meaning to it all, but the man behind the animal mask is the cause of all the blood on the screen. As you the player watch not knowing exactly how to feel, do you feel empty? Little Nightmares. I'm sure half of you know what this game is, but in case you don't, Little Nightmares follows Six, a little girl with a yellow raincoat who wakes up in a mysterious place where children are imprisoned called the Mall, which is a massive underwater iron vessel. Everyone is larger than her and wants to capture her, or worse. Now there are plenty of theories surrounding what's actually happening in this game and why certain things happen, like how presumably the lady, who is the proprietress of the mall, keeps these children in prison in the first place because she wants to steal their youth to keep her vanity maintained to be the only beautiful person in the world. That is until the ending, spoiler alert, when Six defeats the lady and absorbs her power to defeat all the monsters that started approaching her. The reason the lady interests me and I prefer her as a killer is not only because of how mysterious she is, but her purpose. She serves as an immensely heartless antagonist that I think the entity would much appreciate. The only problem is if she feeds on children's youth and there aren't none in Dead by Daylight, wouldn't she technically be suffering? Unless the entity makes it so every time the lady uses her abilities, it allows her to feed on survivors' past youth in order to maintain her vanity, opening survivors' past memories as her lethal weapon. I know you're probably thinking Little Nightmares can't fit because of how small the protagonists are in the games, that being Six and Mono. I guess either the devs can make the chapter a paragraph with a map or go the Ichi route by aging Six. I guess it will be safer to go the paragraph route after thinking about it, because the way Little Nightmares 2 ends, if you played it, is like, how can they make that work? Plus, passionate fans may not like the idea of Six being older with barely any context surrounding how the story left off. It may just take away what made Little Nightmares special and that universe special in the first place by making Six or Mono fit in with the survivors. At least that's my opinion. The atmosphere in Little Nightmares is bizarre, questionable, disturbing, all at once. At one point you feel powerless, running away and hiding until you get past the horror that's trying to seek you out. Next you're left wondering what happened, where am I, and what's going on. It's so much to unpack while being distracted by the unknown until you figure out what piece belongs to what part of the puzzle. It's what makes the series what it is today, and I would love to see it in DVD. The exciting thing is, Behavior is actually acknowledging Little Nightmares as maybe a potential chapter. So who knows, we may actually see Little Nightmares in DVD one day. Puppet combo. Known for the 80s VHS style survival horror games, I think one of the many puppet combo games would be a badass chapter in DVD. A viewer had suggested this from the 4th underrated chapters video I did, and I couldn't agree more. But the problem with having one of these games as a chapter is that none of these games can work because of how low quality they are. I mean, that's what makes these games special and scary, right? That low quality graphic design where it's pretty hard to comprehend what exactly you're looking at. It adds more to the horror. If one of these were to come to DVD, I see Behavior upscaling the graphics, which isn't isn't a bad thing because the chapter would exist, but isn't a good thing either because it feels so different. I can imagine the devs just leaving the graphics the way it is, but that would definitely look kinda weird in game, seeing a high quality character next to a low quality one. I mean, Dead by Daylight is technically a multiverse, so they can get away with it, but I don't know how others may feel about it. Other than that though, if I had to choose one of the many puppet combo game licenses that I would want to see in DVD, it would have to be Power Drill Massacre. This game scared the shit out of me. The sound effects alone and the noises the killer makes when he catches you doesn't help either. I know, nightmare fuel, especially at max volume. In Power Drill Massacre, you play as a lady named Megan. Her and her boyfriend gets into a car accident which incapacitates the boyfriend, leading Megan to find help. She then finds an abandoned factory named the Brandon Sawmill and ventures inside to find help. Little does she know the dark history of that abandoned sawmill and who still remains inside. The ambience in this game makes you extremely uncomfortable, just knowing you're about to die at any moment from the drill maniac coming literally out of nowhere. It gives you that feeling that someone is watching you every turn you make, making you all the more anxious to press the sprint button. It leaves you on your toes. I feel like it's the location as well. It's dark, narrow, and you often feel like you're running in circles until you inevitably get off. It's somewhat of a queasy feeling of anticipation, knowing something is about to happen at any second. If a Power Drill Massacre chapter were to happen, which I doubt, I would hope that the devs make you feel like you're playing Power Drill Massacre by adding that feel to the maniac with the power drill when he chases you, especially when playing on the map like Brandon Sawmill, which is indoors, narrow, and dark, where the killer can seemingly come from out of nowhere. I wouldn't know what the killer would do in particular, but the killer's power definitely has to involve being undetectable and ambushing survivors when they least expect it. That alone with the general vibe of the killer, chase music, and sound effects would make for a terrifying chapter in the game.
The Power Drill Massacre.
Door isn't responding to any of our attempts to close it, so please maintain direct eye contact with SCP-173 and...
Now I'm sure you heard the creepypasta about the SCP Foundation, but if you're somehow not familiar with it, the Secure, Contain, and Protect Foundation is a secret fictional organization tasked with keeping peculiar objects and uncanny entities that violate natural law safe. In other words, containing entities that aren't suitable for mankind. There are plenty of SCPs, some more dangerous or Euclid, I should say, than others, that each have their own variety. My personal favorite is SCP-173, also known as the Sculpture. This one is weird, but if you don't know it, I'll let you do your research since this SCP obviously can't fit in DVD. Maybe an Easter egg sighting in the map behind a glass, but that's about it. Anyways, SCPs have been known in internet horror for quite a long time. I'd love to one day see an SCP as a killer in DVD, though it really doesn't seem possible, but who knows. The only question is, which SCP? My first pick was really the Plague Doctor, but after rethinking my decision for a more suitable and diverse power in the game, I think SCP-106, also known as the Old Man, would be a really cool addition. I would love the Shy Guy as well due to his disturbing crying and unnaturally long body, but a killer that can create their own windows in a way would be great. SCP-106, aka the Old Man, has the ability of corrosion, which is an effect that occurs every time the Old Man touches something. Whatever he touches starts to melt on impact when he touches it, but what he's mainly known for is phasing through walls and ceilings, leaving behind corrosive mucus, which opens up a pocket dimension, in which the Old Man has control of the realm's time, perception, and laws. Not only does the Old Man seem like a good fit for DVD, but I like how his ability can work in DVD if the devs ever consider it. The Old Man can apply corrosion on any valid surface he touches, but must apply a corresponding corrosion in order to teleport to each, basically getting from point A to point B by setting his own spawn points similar to Demogorgon. I can also see him using the pocket dimension to slow down survivors, kinda like the pig, making it so that they can escape once they get down and sent there, but it comes with a consequence and acts as a hook stage. He can only send one survivor to the pocket dimension per trial. The main reason why I would really like a killer like this is because it would technically be like Portal meets DVD, since the Old Man would be teleporting similar to how they teleport in Portal, which I find pretty cool. But the SCP Foundation itself has a dark grimace to it. It just looks like a place where you shouldn't be or one that's not your habitat, since what lies within is nothing but obscurity, making you question your sanity and wonder, am I really here with these things? It's pretty unsettling, but it can fit in DVD perfectly if I ever had the chance, which I doubt.